russosbrand.com, where the pros are the pros.
Well, let's get to the Britt Baker stuff. So there was a couple different dirt sheet reports about why she has not been on TV in over 2 months. So we'll start with those. And the first one was from Wade Keller, who says she might be done with AEW. The feeling I'm getting from talking to people in AEW is Tony Khan might have her in the same category as some other wrestlers where they just don't get phone calls and they don't get called in to show up. There's a lot of frustration with her. He also said that she was wildly unpopular with the other women in the company, although he did note that there may be some backstage that would disagree with that. So then Meltzer and Alvarez chimed in on this. Meltzer said he did some digging on the situation and that he heard that she's not leaving AEW anytime soon. But there is some truth to how people feel about her. He said it's not a subject a lot of people wanted to talk about. But as far as like you could go from here, but my basic they can't even translate this guy without all of his this ridiculous speech. You know? You could go from here, but my basic impression is that it's a story that there's a kernel of truth to some of it, but it got blown way, way out of proportion. So Alvarez said that he also asked around in AEW and people told him that she's firmly with the company, but no one is sure why she isn't around. If you talk to a lot of people in AEW, obviously Britt Baker is polarizing. There are people who don't like Britt. The idea that nobody in the locker room likes Britt is absolutely not true. I talked to a lot of people today. At the end of the day, she's not being used right now, and most people don't know why. And ultimately, it's Tony's decision whether she's going to be used or not. Now, she hadn't tweeted in 2 weeks, but she just did to respond to something that Conan had said on Keeping It 100. He said, at the end of the day, nobody wanted to work with her. Thunder Rosa was definitely going to get into a fist fight with her because she told me so. Maybe cooler heads prevailed. Maybe if she said it to me, she said it to somebody else. So maybe they went in there and calmed the tension down. But I think this is something that any veteran can tell you. When you go into a dressing room and the younger wrestlers don't shake your hand, or at least, that's heat. And when I was there, she never shook my hand. She never introduced herself. She never said hi. That's not the reason I bust her. The reason was she was very toxic. I was the first one that said her and Adam Cole had broken up. They were on me again. Now you see it's true. And I'm going to throw this little one in there. A very credible source said it happened because she was cheating on him. So Britt responded to this on Twitter. She said, I understand we as performers are expected to have thick skin through opinions and lies we read about ourselves, but spreading lies about my personal life is just low, weird, and something I won't tolerate. I've never cheated on anyone in my life. # tell your source.
So she's not liked. Oh my God. No, she's not liked by the other girls in the locker room. Well, no shit. Duh. Of course, she's not liked. If you got in this business, I tell all of the people at the academy, so this is how to not be liked work. Okay. How to not be popular work.
Can I teach this class?
Well, we certainly want somebody with experience. So,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Listen, if you're if you're trying to pursue anything in life to be liked, stop. I'm just going to tell you right now, it ain't going to happen. Okay. Especially if you are in any fashion or form successful, especially if you're in any forum where it's competitive, especially when you're in a situation where it's subjective, not objective, then you're not going to be liked. It's just the more successful you are, the more it's going to breed jealousy and contempt, and they're not going to like you. Now, I would recommend you don't help that matter by always remaining respectful and always being very cognizant, no matter who you are, no matter how high up on the card you get, you're not bigger than the show. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Because where it becomes a problem is when enough of them all get together and go, you know what, we're not working with her. Because you can't draw money on your own. Okay? No matter who you are, number one, you can't be a star without others helping you to be a star in this business. That's why a lot of the rules of etiquette are put in place for a number of reasons. But one of the very most is the fact that it keeps you from believing your own publicity, because it's such a twisted game that we play with ourselves to where we have to convince ourselves we are a star. And when you're given an opportunity to go to that ring, it is your responsibility to make yourself a star. But you're now reliant on the other person in that ring to help elevate you and make you a star as well. That's why you always say thank you. You won't win unless somebody else is willing to lose. You'll never fully be a star unless someone else is willing to help elevate you. And the only way you're going to get to that point is by stepping on the backs of others who are willing to lay down and do it for you. So you say thank you. That's why you always shake hands. You always introduce yourself to prove that you're no bigger than everyone else. All it takes is for you to walk to that ring one night and the person across from you go, I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. Now, you may still win, but you're not going to look like a star. You're not going to look like $1 million. But as long as you maintain respect, because that's the biggest thing, is respect. It's not about popularity. It's not about being liked. It's about respect. No ifs, ands, or buts. And you're not going to be liked in the locker room, especially the more successful you are, the more likely it is that you're going to be disliked. You're going to have jealousy. You're going to have contempt. And it isn't about that. And as far as Britt not being used at this time, it could be a simple matter of, Tony might just not have a spot for her, might just not have an idea at this point. How much has she been featured for how long? Since the inception of, AEW. Well, it's okay for her to take some time off and be missed. And now people speculating about where she's at. But generating a rumor, oh my God, people don't like her. And, she has heat in the locker room. Well, she probably does. And good for her. You don't think that guys, the only guy I think I've ever met in the business that was successful and was not just disliked in the locker room was probably Undertaker. And, because you couldn't deny it, but Undertaker always did handle things according to the rules of etiquette as well. And he was always very respectful. It used to be when I broke into the business back in the day, you'd put somebody over, the second they pinned you, they were saying thank you in your ear. Now these guys do it and they'll walk past you and, they don't thank you. They don't shake your hand. They don't say boo, and that leads to this kind of stuff. Not to mention, again, allowing people like these newsletter writers, like Wade Keller, like Dave Meltzer, like Brian Alvarez, who literally said, we talk to people. You're rumor mongering is what you're doing. You're not reporting news.
Yeah, well, but these are the same people that are invited by the WWE and AEW into the scrum every week. So Sarah, I mean, Alvarez is basically saying, yeah, bro, I'm on the phone all day trying to get dirt, and these are the people. Come on in, Triple A, yeah, bro, sit in the first row. You got a question for me? Come on, these are the same people that we're letting in the business.
What they're not letting them in, the business. The boys have done that. Okay, they're talking to them. They're trying to utilize, much like what Corey Graves tried to do with the social media. The boys have been doing that with the newsletters for decades, where they've tried to further their own agendas. They've rumor mongered. That's all it is. But hey, you're not going to get rid of them, and it is kind of, in a way, as long as you utilize it the right way, it is smart to, okay, you know what? We're going to have these scrums, and then we're going to give you information to allow you to help promote what we're trying to do. We're going to make you feel important. We're going to put you over, and we're going to utilize you because you're not going to go away. So we might as well put you, make you a positive force in some manner to help promote the stuff and reach an audience that otherwise we might not be able to reach.
Then when you go out and you represent yourself like a total freaking douchebag mark, that's a reflection back on the company. It's a reflection back on the freaking company. We hear it, Jeff and I hear it every week on Castrating the Marks. These guys sound like absolute mark fanboy idiots. And these are the same guys that are invited by the WWE. So I'm sorry, to me, that's a reflection on the WWE.
I don't think I think it's not. I think it's more, it does bring to light just exactly how much these are not part of the business. It brings to light just how much these people are just fans that are very passionate to the point to where they feel like they are part of something they genuinely aren't, you know, and they're being used, and they're being used to the company's benefit, not to theirs.
Yeah.
You know, they're being worked because they are marks.
From Conan's perspective, you know, she disrespected him by not going up to him, introducing herself. Right. Well, unless he gives the full picture, we don't know. I mean, this could be she was right there and didn't say anything, or she could have been in a different room and didn't go search him out. Who knows, right? Because I don't think he's explained the exact situation.
True, yeah.
But Vince, from her side, you went through this with Roddy Piper.
Absolutely.
And you've told the story a couple years ago.
Years. He carried a grudge against me of something that was totally wrestling folklore and absolutely freaking ridiculous.
What was that?
Bro, I went to work for WCW. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of these people I was working with for the first time. A lot of legends.
Right.
Okay. Piper was one of them. Okay. So, bro, I'm working. Piper arrives at the building. Ed sees Piper before I do. So Ed goes up to Piper, introduces himself, shakes Roddy's hand, the whole 9 yards. After Ed sees him, I then see him and I do the same exact thing. And for years and years and years, in Roddy's mind, I big timed him by sending my minion first to, and he had me on his show, and I'm like, Roddy, Ed saw you before I did, bro. Like, it's that. So you've literally been building this up in your head for 5 years. And he saw you before I did. Why in God's name would I big time you? But and I think that's what Jeff is saying. Unless you really know what the situation is, you got to take it with a grain of salt, man.
You do, but that's how important these rules are. You know, especially to the older generation. Because that was all put in place to make sure that everyone understood. You're not bigger than the show,
right?
You know, you can be a star, but you're not a star by yourself.
Yep.
You know, you can't win unless somebody's willing to lose. Hell, you can't lose unless somebody's willing to win.
Yeah.
You can't be the main event unless there's an opening match.
Yeah.
You can't be the opening match if there's no main event. Yeah. Everybody is needed on the show. You can't be a wrestler without a promoter. You can't be a promoter without the wrestlers. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But yet you've got to go out there and believe in yourself and believe you're a star, to be a star, and the audience to believe that you are a star. And then everyone else has to help you and can help convince the audience that you are. You know, again, that's what makes this business very unique, and it makes it very, very, you know, and let's face it, it's so dichotomous because it's very much an individual business. It's very ultra competitive, but yet at the same time, you have to need each other because you could be the most I mean, the only reason, quite honestly, that Hogan was able to have the run he had is because he had a line of heels that could get heat, a belief that Hogan was in jeopardy and that it might be the heel that beats him. You know, if Hogan hadn't had that line of heels, he might not have had nearly the run. Steve Austin truly was so super over, but he hadn't had the right heel in Vince, The Rock, over. Man, you know, good for him. If he didn't have Triple H to compete with, and, you know, where you could sense they were genuinely competing with each other and taking shots at each other, maybe he wouldn't have had the run he had. It's that simple. You always have to have an equal and opposite to the other. Otherwise, you could have the most heat in the world as a heel And then if, same with Vince. Vince kind of faltered as a character when Steve Austin left, because there wasn't that babyface that was there that represented the people, and that he could then play off of and work with and continue to build that heat. That's why all of those rules were put in place. All of that etiquette was passed down. And I think a lot of that's been intrinsic to this business has been lost. And that's where we're now starting to get into these miscommunications and misunderstandings and stuff like that. Because like you said, like that little misunderstanding with Roddy carried for years.
And not only did he carry it for years, I had no idea.
Right.
I was oblivious to what was in his head. Oblivious to. One thing I do got to show, man, because I'm telling you, like I learned this from Vince, and Al will back this up. Guys, when you have guys on top, okay, you're going to have some toxic talents. Okay. And, Shawn Michaels was the prime example the whole time I was there. The prime example. Yeah. Man, Tony has shown time and time again. He does not know how to handle toxic talents, man. And bro, he needs to learn how to handle them, because when you're high on that food chain, bro, you're going to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder.
Sure.
And he couldn't handle Punk. It seems now that he can't handle Britt Baker. Brother, somebody's got to smarten this guy up about, dealing with toxic stars.
Well, and that's kind of what the majority of them usually have, that trait, because that's what makes them a star,
Right.
I have a kid here, nice kid, goofy, green, but, he annoys everyone backstage. He does, because he has that you know what I mean, that belief, you know what I mean, and
Anthony Katina, is it Anthony?
No, it's not.
Are you sure, Al?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anthony does. God bless his heart. I mean,
God bless his heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
He he's a good kid, but man, it's like talking to a box of marbles.
Yeah. Anthony.
Yeah. And he just wants it so bad. But that's an aspect of being a star. That you've got to keep telling everybody. You've got to kind of have that about
you. Gotta.
You can't, because if you don't, it's very difficult. Like, I'll give you a good example. And I do this if I do a seminar or whatever, and I'm not doing it to bust anybody's balls. I just really am trying to enforce the idea of just how much self-belief you have to be a success in this business. Okay. So what I do is I always ask this, it's a rhetorical question. So, and I always make that clear. Okay. When I was in WWF or WWE at the time, and Kevin Dunn and I remember standing at ringside, and we were discussing television. We were discussing, the platform and the opportunity and et cetera. And, he was like, a lot of these guys don't realize how much investment's being given to them by just putting them in the ring on TV. Mm-hmm. And I had him elaborate, and he said, well, if we wanted to, a 30-second commercial at that time. Now, keep in mind, this was at that time, which was early 2000s. At that time, a 30-second commercial on Raw was like $50,000 for 30 seconds. So a 6-minute match, basically a 6-minute commercial to sell your product, which is you, was about $300,000 of investment in you. That's on top of lighting, sound, cameras, ring equipment, rental of the arena. I mean, I could go on down the list. Okay. So just the television time alone is $300,000 of an investment in you. Okay. That they could have chosen to just sell for 30 seconds. So I always say this, I go, look, if I could make a phone call tomorrow and I could get you a match next week on Raw for 6 minutes, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, if you use those 6 minutes correctly, then the sky's the limit, Would you be willing to give me $300,000 of your own money to have that opportunity? And you'd be amazed at how many people aren't willing to do it. And I'm pretty honest. I go, look, those of you that aren't willing to do it, I'd just say right now, pack up your boots and put them in a bag and realize you're not going to be you're never going to achieve the dream that you say you want to achieve. You want to be in WWE, you've got to believe so much in yourself that you're willing to invest your own money. Because if you're not willing to invest your own money, how are you ever going to convince someone else to invest theirs in you?